Welcome to Devon and Cornwall Microsoft Power BI User Group. Today we have Ben Ferry, who's going to be going through some of the new core visuals and some of the different tips and tricks that we can use to maximise their usage. Before we hand over to Ben, I'd just like to draw your attention to some of the sessions that are coming up in the next few weeks. A huge mix for everyone, some great technical sessions and some interesting conceptual ideas as well. So without any further ado, here's Ben.
Much appreciated. I've got to start off by saying I'm really impressed by Sue's organisation there. They planned so much, so far in advance. And this slide about all the rules and stuff, I'm going to steal that from my user group idea.
Yes,
steal that right from me. I appreciate it.
I stole it from Christian. So
there you go.
Yeah.
It's like the hierarchy of Seth, basically.
Exactly.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah.
Anyway, so thank you very much for the invite to talk about the Power BI core visuals. My presentation or run through Power BI hard core visuals is basically because it sounds a bit funny, and also there is a point we'll come to there with that hard. We'll focus down that in a little bit. First of all, about me, I am Ben Ferry. Hello. I exist online as this Power BI guy, which is actually, when I first thought of it, I thought that's clever and original. It turned out to be neither of those things. There's like 15 Power BI guys out there. So these are my handles if you want to find me on YouTube, Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. Mainly I talk about data visualization with Deneb. I am part of this this Power BI core visual community, which Miguel is working on with his team to improve the standard, the quality of data visualization within Power BI. So this is why we're here, basically. So what are core visuals? Just to get that out of the way straight away. Basically, the core visuals are your standard Power BI visuals. So if you open Power BI desktop and you want to visualize data, they're the ones that come like pre-packaged there. Anything that isn't basically a custom visual is a core visual. Yeah, so I think it's important to be really honest about what's happening in the situation and why things are being done. Power BI visuals are basically not great, not good. I remember when I started my current job about 6 months ago, and my boss started on the same day. We were talking about Power BI, and he made this comment that you can always tell when a report's been made in Power BI without knowing it's made in Power BI because of the way it looks. His comment basically saying they often don't look professional or refined or clean, and everything you're saying is accurate. And this is one of the reasons Miguel and his team are trying to fix this. They are fixing this. It's a long process. They use this hashtag Power BI core visuals, which you can follow on LinkedIn. Or whatever social media, but I think probably LinkedIn is better for this sort of thing. Or you can also go to this page, which should open when I click on it, and skip verification. This is the LinkedIn Power BI core visual page, which is very helpful to follow. I'll try and drop this link in the chat, but I'm very bad at that sort of thing. As you can see, it's really cool. It takes you through, what's upcoming, what exists now, what has been done. So if you're interested in this sort of thing, if you're interested in the core visuals, I would definitely recommend that you, that you keep up to date with that Power BI core visuals thing on LinkedIn, basically. So, which are the new visuals that exist now in Power BI because of this project? This welcome to the party, pal, as in welcome to the visualizations. The new card. So we have a new card that was released, I can't remember when, a good few months ago. And we have also, newer than that, is the button slicer, aka the new slicer. I'll get to also later on why I have the new slicer in brackets. I see someone saying who is Miguel. Yes, that was very vague of me. I apologize. Miguel Myers is basically the person who works for Microsoft, who is responsible for leading this this team of core visuals, basically. When we talk to people, or when he's very, very also proactive on social media regarding taking feedback. So if you use these core visuals, also it's important to know provide feedback also openly on LinkedIn, social media, or message Miguel or message whomever, someone from the community, so we can provide feedback. It's a very collaborative experience, which is quite nice. We vote on things, we collect feedback from people who use Power BI, and then we can take that and we give it back to Miguel, and then they improve the situation with them, basically. Yeah.
Very good, isn't he? He does respond. If you put things in and you tag Power BI core visuals, then there does get
he does.
It is monitored.
Yeah, he's very good at that sort of thing, and he any feedback, positive or negative, of course. Trying to keep it as constructive as possible. He does respond to it, and these things like often get actioned. It's a long project. I mean, there are some things that are planned that won't happen until 2025, simply because of the resources that they have available. But I think what we've seen thus far is that the work that they have done, they have started to improve the level of the things that you can do in Power BI with. And we're only talking about, again, a couple of things, a card and a slicer, but there are things on top of that as well, which I'm actually not going to go into today, because there's actually quite a lot of things to do. It's quite a lot to unpack. But if you look at also your labeling of your data labels and stuff, how that's becoming more dynamic, that's part of what Miguel's trying to do inside Power BI with these core visuals. Obviously, the best way to display that is by showing you in Power BI Desktop. And this is why I literally have no slides left at this point, because I'm not good at slides, and we're not really here to see slides, to be quite honest.
By the way, I have ticked Die Hard is a Christmas movie.
Yeah, so, fantastic. Yeah. See, that's the correct opinion. I love it.
Just paying attention.
I'm very impressed. I wasn't sure if this texture was too small. I was trying to make it a little bit subtle. You know what I mean? But yeah, it is indeed. I might watch it at night, because the Christmas tree went up today. So Christmas tree, whiskey,
mince pie,
Die Hard. That's the rules.
Yeah.
So, Anthony, definitely Christmas for me. I like it. So what I'm going to do basically is going to use a couple of these core visuals, and we'll see how it goes. I'll highlight what I like, and I'll highlight what I don't like again. And I want to be honest about the situation, because there are things I think are a little bit not perfect. Start off with the absolute basics, like how do you actually get the core visuals? How to get the new visuals. So as you can see here, I have hello, mate. I have these two visuals here with a little lightning bolt on them. How do you get those? So basically, you go to File, and they're the preview features. Basically, you go to Options and Settings, Options, and then you want to find in your preview features, you want to switch on your button slicer visual and your new card visual. These are the two that you have to use to get these new visualizations in Power BI. They will appear close to the bottom, and they will have this little lightning bolt on them. And this is why before I said it's the new slicer, aka the button slicer. That's the first. That's a little bit confusing, because you have the card new when you hover over, and then you have the slicer new when you hover over. So actually in the visualization pane, it's not actually called the button slicer, it's called the slicer new. So when I talk about feedback about things that could be improved, this is something that's been overlooked, or I'm not sure why it's been done. Maybe it was a mistake. Even small things like that are important. I literally was preparing to go through all this stuff today, and in doing so, I came up with like 5 new things that I was like, yeah, that needs to be changed. That should be better, or that doesn't work, or that has to be a bug, or all that type of stuff, Anyway, how do we do it? So if we start off with the new card, the easiest way to show, like we have here the old card, so also known as just card, old card, new card, card, whatever. There is indeed always room for improvement. The most basic win that you get from the new card is that you can put multiple measures in the new card, right? So whereas with the old card, you had one card, one measure. And interestingly, I didn't realize that the old card was the most used visual across Power BI worldwide. Didn't know that, but it kind of makes sense, because you see them all over reports and whatnot. When it was released, the first thing I started to do was to take out all the old cards and put in the new cards. So what we're going to do is I'm going to click on new card, which gives me a visual, and then I can just select the measures that I want to use. So I'll use the ones that I pretty much always use. So I'm going to use total points by game week. This is all like fantasy football data, by the way, in case you're curious. It's not really relevant what data it is, but it's what it is. Bonus, and I'm also going to choose assists. So I very honestly think that alone is worth it. Like, that functionality alone for me makes this worthwhile to have the new card. Even if you couldn't do any of the other things that you can do, I'd be like, that's cool, I'll take it.
Yeah, it saves so much time already.
It does.
Yeah.
How much time have you spent like aligning cards? And,
a lot.
It's like a shocking amount of time. So that in itself is your win, right? So you might notice that I'm not using on object formatting. There's a reason for that, is that I hate it. So at some point, I'm sure I will, because they'll force me to do so. And I was going to start this week, but because of this, I was like, I'm not presenting on the first week that I start using on object formatting. Yeah. So
I have gone on to on object formatting.
Yeah, you've gone over that side, have you? Yeah.
I've gone over it only because I thought I've got to at some point.
Exactly. Yeah, I get it. I really do. So we have this, and maybe just to make it a little bit nicer, I'll put in like one more metric, and then I can have this. So we have the 4. The reason why I want to put it in 4 is because I want to show a couple of things that you can do. So the first that I want to see is just the layout. Okay, so what you can do is change the orientation from horizontal to vertical. Obviously, as soon as you do that, it looks weird. You got to, change the shape. Otherwise, it's going to look, terrible. So you can say we want it to be vertical, and also you can say you want it to be a grid, which is why I put in this 4th visual. So I can say I want 2 rows and I want 2 columns. And then I have this grid. So already a nice way to kind of make things look a little bit different. This is cool. Shape-wise, so I can see like you have all these options in PowerBI. I have all these different shapes. You have arrows, stars, hearts, all this weirdness. But within the cards, you actually only have rectangle, rounded rectangle, and this snipped both. Yeah. But to give the ability to do more, you can also, customize your style, which then you can say, okay, I actually want top left corner to be like, 25. And then I want, something's going to happen right now. This is intentional, by the way. Bottom left corner to be also 25. Oh, it didn't happen. 1 second. There, now it happened. So if we want to talk about things that shouldn't happen but do happen, this is going to be one of them, okay? So I knew it was going to happen. I'm prepared for it. I'm not terrified. Don't worry. But this is the sort of thing we're talking about. And when this sort of thing happens, it dramatically increases the number of clicks that you have to do to fix it. So there is way to do it. If you look at, for example, I don't want to go into too much right now, but padding, you can like change padding around and stuff to give it more space, but it shouldn't happen basically. So you have to bear in mind that if you do set things in a certain way, it's going to impact the way your visual looks. So if I just take this back down to something a bit more, I don't know, like that, 10 and 10, then you can see it's okay. I actually discovered that because I wanted to try and make the shape look like an arrow pointing towards something, which I thought would be quite cool, but it didn't work because I had this, massive offset where the text wasn't setting properly. But point is, it's not a huge issue. You can change the shapes and you can, play around with the corners, whatever is fun for you, that sort of thing. The next thing I'm going to say, I'm not entirely sure how true this is. I think currently, if anyone in the chat knows better, please feel free to let me know. I think currently the new visualizations aren't changeable using the JSON theme template things. I think you can't do that yet. I could be wrong. It's possible. The reason I mention that is because I do think the standard setup, and this is one of the things that I think could be improved, is a little bit obnoxiously large, in my opinion. Like these numbers are just like enormous. Like why? So for example, if I look at
every time I change it, every time. It's the same as long date, every time.
Yeah, long date. That's so true. Yeah.
Get Tabular Editor just to format long date, short date.
It's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
So by default, these settings are on the call out, by the way. So if I go to call out and I say the value, I want to change the size of the values from 45 to say 25. Yeah, so I know this is very standard stuff, but again, I'm just highlighting the stuff that we have to go through. One of the small things, one of my favorite German words, by the way, is Kleinigkeiten. One of the small things, I really do like Kleinigkeiten. Yes, I don't know. I enjoy saying it. You can change the position to above and below, so I can say, okay, I want the label below. Quite nice, very cool. Changes it up a little bit, and of course, you can format the text however you want. This is nothing huge or nothing new, but you can do that. There are other settings as well, of course, looking at how it looks. If you look at the cards themselves. So currently we have a fill that is white. Obviously, if I want to make it orange. By the way, I like the color orange. Sorry about the brightness, but I just do. Maybe because I used to work for EasyJet, I don't know. So we have a fill of orange if we want. This is very standard. Bring it back to white. There are other things. So this accent bar I quite like. I think it's quite cool. The accent bar just gives it an accent, surprisingly enough. That's where it gets its name from, no? So you switch it on. By default, it's there. You can, you make it a bit wider, change the color. I do appreciate that for all of these things, what you can do is use conditional formatting, because one of the things that I think has been undeveloped in Power BI, the visualization, the past few years, is the use of the conditional formatting everywhere. I really do think if color doesn't exist, there should be an FX button right there. But for all of these things, I think the vast majority of these things in the new visuals, you can do that. So if I want to say, if this value is over, so please also bear in mind something to consider is that I'm currently saying apply settings to all. I can also apply to individual as well. So if I want total points by game week to be one color, then it'll just be that one. So of course I can apply my conditional formatting to each individual metric as well. So it's very, very customizable in that regard. It's very nice. Shadow and glow exist. I will probably literally never use those things because I don't like them. That's just a personal thing. I don't know if I spent so much time talking about shadow and glow because they are there. Play around with them. You know what they do anyway because they exist on other visualizations. I used to use the shadow a lot to create a nicer border around visualizations, but you also have that option now to change that right here. So the width of the card can be changed manually very nicely like that. Again, I'm going to go back to the standard one, but say I want it to be 10, I want to have a transparency of like 50, all this type of stuff. Customizable. But these things that I'm currently showing you aren't the things that are getting people very excited or interested. These are just the nice things to have that you can make it look a certain way. I think probably what's been the most sought after or the most appreciated at this point feature of the new cards is the fact that, yes, you can change the background. This is just my bad JSON. So I've got the background, I switch it off and it's just off like that. So now it just goes in the background. Yeah. Thank you for that comment because I forgot about that. SVGs. Power BI has gone SVG crazy over the past year. People love putting SVG, and I've got nothing against it. SVGs are very helpful, very cool. My only issue with SVGs is that I'm very bad at them. So it's
another language.
It's a whole new thing, right? Actually, it's quite interesting because I speak about Denev so often. It used to be a couple of years ago, like, oh, what did it? Like, Denev or Charticulator. And then Charticulator kind of like drifted off. And now people are like, oh, what should I use? Like Denev or like SVG? And the question itself doesn't make much sense because it's great that you can use whichever one you want, depending on the visualization that you're using or what you're trying to achieve. They both do very different things. But something about my brain just doesn't get SVGs. I'll have to try it a bit harder. But I will luckily show you.
Isn't it? It's quite long to read. I find. Yeah, I've used them and it's brilliant. But SVG. Rahul.
So SVG is something that about 5 minutes ago, something vector graphics.
Scalable, is it?
Yes, scalable vector. Oh my God. I actually remembered something whilst doing a presentation. It happens very rarely for me. Some of my live streams, I always forget people's names.
Yeah, I forgot different things.
So I'm going to go back to the horizontal view. I'm going to pull it across a little bit.
Really.
And what I want to do basically, I'm going to add an SVG to these visuals so you can see what I'm talking about. They will work because someone else wrote them and I copy and pasted them, as I like to do. So what you can do is, if you have, again, your individual cards, you can go to your image. And again, you have to remember, you can go click on all, or you can go on total points, or whatever one you have in your series. So let's just go to bonus, because why not? And I choose to switch the image on. When I switch the image on, I can either upload something from my device, or I can go image URL. That allows me to do one or two things. I can literally give a path to an image URL that's somewhere online, and it'll load that in to Power BI. Or I can use the conditional formatting, and that will allow me to use a measure to give the SVG. So what I'm going to do, first of all, I'm going to write SVG here so you can see what I'm talking about. So we're going to use bonus, and I have this SVG sparkline measure bonus, and this is pretty much what it is. So obviously I'm not going to go through what this does because I'm not good enough to explain it. I just took out the parts and put in my parts, you know?
Yeah.
This builds an SVG. If you want to learn how to do it, there's plenty of people who can show you how. I'm most definitely not one of them. But this is what we're doing.
Anthony's dropped Kerry's blog post into the chat. So.
Good idea. Perfect. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool. Thank you, Anthony. So what I'm going to do is when I click on my FX button, my conditional formatting, if you hear shouting in the background, it's because my family are decorating the Christmas tree, and that always causes chaos. Always.
Oh, and you're missing it.
Oh, it's okay. There'll be something left over. I promise you that. So I've got a bonus here, and I've just searched for SVG because I've got field value, right? You can only go field value. So again, I've searched for SVG, and I click on the one that I want, which is bonus, and I'm going to go on OK. And then this happens. So if nothing appears, don't panic at first.
I did first time.
Yeah. So this is why it normally has like a default size, which doesn't help at all. It shows nothing. Yeah. So you got to type in the size that you actually want it to be. Yeah. So if I just pick 100, and I have my SVG now. And what that line is showing is, of course, basically the history of that value. Yeah. So I could use the bar chart, because you can write SVG bar charts, but everyone loves SVG lines, and that's what I'm putting here. Obviously, it immediately looks terrible. Yeah, true. And it looks terrible. That's because I have to sort out the rest of the formatting, right? So what I want to do now is I want to say, okay, position not right, but rather bottom. And then I can just change my padding, all this type of stuff. And you have to play around with the settings a lot. So obviously your card doesn't have to be this size, because it's quite tall now, if you will. Play around with the settings, your padding, all this type of stuff to make it more compact for sure. But having SVGs in a card is a very nice thing to be able to do. You can add value. Another thing that you can also add is these reference labels. So that's a really cool thing. So I'll be honest, the data set that I have is not perfect for this presentation, so you're going to see some strangeness, to be honest. But you've got to go with it. So if I say, for example, now choosing assists, I can add a reference label. I can click on my add data. Yeah. And then I can click on something else. I want to click on any other. Let's click on appearances. Yeah. So I click on appearances, and what it does now is it adds some other value to the bottom of my card, right? So again, it's pretty huge. Let's sort it out a little bit. So what I'm doing now is I've changed the size of the title. I also need to change the size of the of the value. So as I'm saying this, I'm going to start to tell you one of the things that I really don't like about this process. Okay. And I hope you all understand that when I say this thing, I'm saying with all due respect to the people who work on it, it's very good, great functionality, but the number of clicks is extraordinary. Okay. Yeah. This concept of, I think it was Chris Wade said it a few years ago, this clicky, clicky, draggy, droppy. Yeah. It's becoming like clicky, 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 draggy, droppy. It's just like, it's a lot. So even, I mean, I've used them a decent amount, but sometimes I get very lost into where I have to go. And I understand that maybe you could say with one on object formatting, it's a bit better. I've tried that way as well, and I still found the experience to be quite similar because you have to go to the same places, you know? So I think it's really easy to get lost in this process and to forget where you need, like, for example, even just changing the title and the value. I get that it makes sense to do two different places, but you add one thing and then another drop down menu appears. It's so you just have to bear that in mind. So for example, I think, for example, if I go to detail now, if I switch on detail, it'll tell me here the setting can't be applied to all the labels at once. To use, you have to select an individual label to modify. And for that, it's because I then have to go back up here to select that. So I've selected the appearance. I could select a different label. You can have more than one label here. So you have a label, and this is the label. And then you have detail, which goes next to that label. So you have to individually select each label that you want to give the detail to. So it's a really, to give more functionality while simultaneously not dramatically increasing the number of clicks is a tough challenge. I get that. But currently, I think probably because then they are sort of relatively new, this stuff. Currently, it's you feel the weight of it when you're working through. You get lost a lot. See you. I mean, it's not me right now.
Yeah, I do too. Anthony said it's annoying you can't hide the SVG code when you hover over certain visuals. I don't know if there's any workarounds.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure if that applies to the cards. I'm not sure if that's true. I mean, I never see any issue hovering over. I think that could be for like maybe matrices, perhaps, when you hover over them. I don't know. I don't really work with SVGs very often, so I can't provide an answer to that.
Reference labels are useful. Happens in matrices, you said. I was going to say you've got your mouse over the SVG there and it wasn't showing.
Yeah, exactly.
Henrique said if you double click the visual, it leads you to the relevant formatting section in object orientated. Yes,
that is true. That's a good point. It digs you there. Just to highlight what this detail actually does, I have this doesn't show you anything, but if I were to say like versus previous year, arrow up, arrow down, actually I think I might actually have something called arrow, to be honest.
It's almost like you want to set up a template, because pretty much every report has you tend to have your key points, your left elevator thing, and so it's it would be nice to be able to have like a macro that you could just run it on the card, which would go bang, 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 bang. I suppose like a template or a theme, which all of your cards are set at a certain point with the, with the different settings.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, also a good point, copy and paste formatting one to another. You can do that, of course. So have maybe like a PBIX that just serves as a copy and paste thing. But of course, that could work as well. But it's tough, but there are ways to get around it. I mean, just to go back, I do think though, I mean, though I love bright colors, I love creating like monochrome dashboards or reports, whatever. So let's just take our total points per game week here. And I do think that looks really cool. Don't get me wrong. Like if I take, for example, I think one of the things you have to bear in mind is let's keep it consistent. Like I wouldn't create something where I've got like an SVG here and then this here, because then it just gets really messy and too busy and you don't know what you're looking at. But if we had this situation here where I've got my assists and I've got the number of appearances here, and this arrow, also by the way, the arrow, the detail, the color can be controlled also by a conditional formatting. So if it's good, it's green. If it's bad, it's red. All those sort of things. Also, if it's good, it's up. If it's bad, it's down. So it's really, really controllable. There's loads of stuff you can do, and it does look very, very good. I love the new card visual. I really do think it's brilliant.
I think it gives that context, doesn't it? It's quite, it makes it, I mean, I know we're moaning about the clicky, but it does enable you to put the context in straight away, so you can understand whether the, you know, the top level number is good or bad. Really, is this good or bad, over how long?
Yeah. No, it's a really nice thing, and you know, you can switch off the background here as well. You switch off the divider or keep the background. So it's really, really formattable. Looks great, and that's generally the theme of what he's trying to do, is trying to allow you to create visualizations that are easier to look good. And that is, to be fair, that has been achieved in the card visual, because you could easily create one page just of this, you know, like a dashboard style page, and you just see these cards as like a going off point, you know. It's very, very possible to do. So I don't want to spend they have also tooltips, by the way, which is brilliant.
Oh, I love tooltips.
Yeah. So I mean, to be able to switch out the tooltips that work on a card is great. I really love that.
I would like to be able to click on a tooltip to drill through.
Yes, a good point. But I think the fact that tooltips only use measures, that's not going to be achievable, is it? I never thought about that. I should have checked that. But if someone in the chat knows, I think I saw Imran Hack in the chat before. If he's still there, he might know, or whomever, basically. Oh, actually, we'll get this in a second regarding using measures or something other than measures. I had this issue before, so actually this is a good time to, because I know we're pushed for time, and I want to look at the slices as well. Okay. So the slices are generally, the functionalities, the things that you can do are the same than the cards. The concept is to make things very similar, so you know where things are, you know what you can do. So the new slicer, which I'll click on now, is, for me, was really interesting, because maybe you can see here, I really don't use custom visuals at all. I have here the chiclet slicer, and I have Deneb, and I have a different version of Deneb, and have HTML content, which I actually never used, to be honest. The reason I'm bringing that up is because the new slicer completely negates the need to use the chiclet slicer, which actually kind of makes me sad in a way, only because I'm being kind of what's that word when you think about historically, about nice stuff about the past? I don't know. I forget the word is now. Nostalgic. Nostalgic.
Sad, Ben. Sad.
Okay, sad. I think I was going more for nostalgic, so I'll stick with nostalgic, because I've always used the chiclet slicer because it was just so, it did so many things.
Slicer.
But you don't need it anymore. You don't need it anymore. So I'm going to use a name. So
see how nice they are: retrospective, sentimental, nostalgic, old-fashioned. Sad.
I think old-fashioned is also more. It's just me showing my age. You know what I'm saying? But out of the box, this is what the new slicer looks like. So I've clicked on my value, which is, you know, the name of the player in question, and it gives me this grid. So what can you do with it? Loads, basically. Same as we had before. I mean, all this single select, force selection, show select all, these existed, so they exist there here now as well. Shape, same as before, rectangle, rounded, snipped on top. And you can also go customize your style, just like you could with the card visual. So these things are very, very similar. I'm going to stick with that shape for now, because I think shapes we can ignore, and it's not a huge concept, to be honest. And I can't show you every single functionality. I'm sorry about that, but I have to kind of show you like the main points, and then advise you to go and play with them and find out all the cool stuff, and give Miguel some feedback and stuff. Interestingly, the thing that people have loved so much thus far about the new slicer is the ability to use images in the slicer. Yeah, you get homework.
Yes.
It's due tomorrow for the second call.
Yeah.
I honestly really don't like using images and slicers. I think it's most for 99% of the time it's totally unnecessary. I think it's great for YouTube videos and LinkedIn posts, but there aren't that many reports where you need an image in your slicer. But I get that people like it and it exists, so I'm going to show you how to do it, right? And that's my personal opinion. I'm not saying I'm right. I'm not saying I'm wrong. I'm just being an opinionated, grumpy person. So this is actually, I want to bring this up pretty quickly because it took me ages to work out what the hell was going on. And when it was me on my own, trust me, I wasn't saying what the hell is going on. I was using a different word. So you got an image, right? You got to add image. No, sorry, you got to add data. I apologize. So what I want to do at this point is I have a URL. In my my image URL is an image. It's the category is image URL. So cool, great. To show that it works, actually, I can go on the old slicer and I can go on image URL and it works, right? Cool. So I'm going to go to this visualization, the new one, and I'm going to go to image. And I'm going to go to, if this works this time, it'll be so funny, man, just to really spite me. So I'm going to get image URL. I'm going to go on OK. Nothing. I'm going to try and drag it, drop it. Nothing. Doesn't work. Why? When you use like Tabular Editor, it doesn't allow you to use, what am I looking for?
Implicit measures.
Implicit measures. So it doesn't work here. So add data, URL, URL measure, now it works.
So
what's the
have you
difference?
used selected?
Yeah, selected value.
Selected value.
So it's a tiny workaround. It's not a big deal at all. That's what you got to do. Yeah, I thought I was going like crazy that it wouldn't work for me. I was watching. I watched like 3 different videos from other people. The new Power BI visual and the new Power BI slice. And I was like, yep, I'm doing that. I'm doing that. And then I finally twigged. Anyway, so that's what you got to do. Interestingly enough, though, I believe if I go to image URL, not the measure, I click on it, and then I say I want the new slicer, then it does work. Because I'm using it as the main field. See, here it's the main field, but here the main field is the name, not the add-on.
Yeah.
So it totally depends on how you want to do it. I prefer doing it actually the way with a measure, not because I'm using the measure, just because I think it looks slightly better. So obviously I've added my image. The image currently looks ridiculous because why? Because it's positioned on top, and I'm going to go, I want to show it on the right, and then I have this situation going on. Yeah. Just so you know, these blanks have got nothing to do with the visualization. The data set that I'm using, a lot of the URL endpoint is just restricted. I guess it's because of copyright issues, because of the player or the team or the sponsor. Yeah. But this is it's an official thing from the fantasy football thing, but for some reason, yeah. So I'm seeing someone immediately impressed by the images in the slicer. So I'm happy that I showed you that. Like I say, it's each though. This report that this data is based on, you always use the image, but it just, to me, it just stopped being relevant. You know, it was like something flashy, but didn't add anything, you know?
I've used them in sort of like infographic reports. I'm just dropping in imgbb.com, which is a free site that you can host your images so it comes up as an image URL.
Oh, cool. Someone's asking me where the data set is. So if you ping me on LinkedIn or if you check out my YouTube channel, you'll see that I have a video about that. So the data set it's the official API for the English Premier League fantasy football. I can't remember obviously you're off the top of my head, but I can provide it to you if you ping me on LinkedIn or something.
I'll put you
yeah. Actually, you know what? I'll drop it towards the end of the chat because I literally just get it from this report.
Okay.
Cool. I'm so slow sometimes. So back to the point. Images, very cool. And so as you can see here, state is default. So if I change this state to hover, I can't change to say, okay, when I'm on hover, I want a different URL. That's not possible. Yeah. Thank you for a LinkedIn URL. That's not possible to change the image, but you can do some cool stuff, right? So what you can say is, for example, when I hover over, what if it went to like black and white? Yeah. That's really cool. I do like that. I got to say, it's a nice thing. You can also say a blur. Now, that's a bit weird to do that. What I was thinking of was to do with the inverse. Could there be some kind of really cool game that you could play where by default it's blur, obviously without the text value. And then when you hover over, or when you press it, then it's unblurred. I think there's something you could do there that would be quite cool. But it's nice. I like it. It's really
that was a pain to do before, because you used to have to click on each state, didn't you, and specify it. So this is a lot easier.
Yeah, it's cool.
Well, actually, they didn't do it in the slicer. That was just in the card, wasn't it? So in the card where you used to have to click on it if you hovered. Buttons, I'm thinking of.
Exactly. Yeah. Yes. So again, accent bar like we have in the card. So I'm not going to go through all the things you can do with the accent bar, because it's exactly the same as you can do in the card visualization. Glow, shadow, all these stuff. Again, not a big fan of drop shadow at all. I used to really overuse it when it first came out because it was new, and then I stopped because I just changed my mind, basically. But if you like those things, they are there to be used at your pleasure, if you will. Standard stuff, you can fill. And again, this is, I wouldn't obviously, please understand that when I show you these things, I'm not saying this is a visualization best practice. I'm just showing that you can do this stuff. So, by default, let's say it's gray, but when you hover over, then you can make it purple. I kind of like, actually, but the fact that the color goes to the background, but the picture goes black and white.
Yeah.
It's quite cool. Oh, yeah, it's really nice. I gotta say, yeah, it's really nice. Also, what you can do, and I know for a fact that I'm immediately going to lose this. Oh man, this is so annoying. You can add. Is it label? I think it's label. Okay, I think it's label. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. We'll get over it and move on with our lives. So labels and stuff to add. So what you can't do in the slicers is you can't use SVGs, okay? But you can use build a measure to show different stuff, and I'll show you what I mean. So if I go here and I say, I think I have something called bar slicer bar. Yeah, exactly. So to better emphasize my point, I'm going to try and play around with some stuff a little bit, which is to say I'm going to go back to my image when I can find it, and I'm going to say maybe image can go on the bottom now. Oh my god, don't do that though. Normal. Okay, let's just say that's what we have. It looks weird. We wouldn't do it, but I just want to show you all the functionalities. Obviously, if you overload it, it's too much, right? So what I have in this called bar, this slicer bar, I found this on a YouTube video from someone else's channel. I forgot to copy it down the link, for which I apologize. But when I do find it, I'll credit the person. It was a Spanish person. I didn't know what they were saying, so I just looked at the code. So this actually coded, maybe it's a bit weird. Basically, what I'm saying is that for each bonus point that the player has, give me this uni character. Yeah. So I like using unicar.
I see. Yeah.
So this unicar is one little rectangle, right? So this person's got I don't know, one. This person, he has 3. Let's keep it easy, right? This person got 3 bonus points, and therefore he gets 3 of these little rectangles. Now I could do that in a better way, so it looks more like a bar chart. There are better ways of displaying that, but I do like the fact that you can build in this functionality to really display something a little bit different and show values, show metrics, all that type of stuff. Also,
little stars or unicorns or whatever unicar you want.
Also very cool. Again, tooltips. So a tooltip on a slicer is very cool. Yeah, it just gives you a bit more freedom for the rest of the report. I think if you can condense some information inside a slicer. So for me personally, what I would do something very similar. I wouldn't have the image because, like I say, not a fan. Respect those who are. So if I were to basically, say, okay, I'd change my mind. I don't want images anymore. How do I do that? Gone. So if I were to also sort this by, for example, total points by game week, and maybe do that. So now, again, we're getting somewhere. It's not great, but we're getting somewhere that this is not a great way to visualize data. But if I were to find a more appropriate visualization metric to be visualizing there, then it could add some context for what we're trying to look at. So again, always important for me to say this sort of thing when I'm doing these presentations is what I'm showing you isn't in any way visualization best practice. It's just showing you the possibilities, giving the
conceptual.
the new functionalities. It kind of does look like small multiples, you know.
I do like the way that if you have the tooltip, it gives you the information, which will then decide whether you want to actually drill down or, you know, you want to select that before you select it. So that's quite nice.
And I think, I've got a web name. I was thinking, duplicate web name. I was about to tell you a lie. I actually thought you could use them as drill throughs, but I think you can't. Sorry about that.
I don't think you can. I think someone put in the chat that you can, but I'd like to be able to look at the tooltip and then click on it. But I think it is. I
know you can look. See, wait a second. You can use this. You can see drill through. And that's really interesting, right? Because this is one.
Do that again.
So do you know what? Do you want to drive me nuts, right?
So you can click on that now as the tooltip.
No, as a drill through, not as the doc. You can click on the drill through within the tooltip, but you can't click on the tooltip itself. Yeah. So no, this is. I think the tooltip thing is a different thing completely because it's a different challenge because the tooltip is a report page and then you can't. There's no. As ever, never end interaction there.
Yeah, that's the bit I mean. When you do your own specific tooltip as a report page, and then you look at it, and then you want to be able to drill through.
Yeah, that would be cool for sure. That would be really awesome. I like this. So interesting point here. So what I really like is the fact that you can use it as a drill through. I was pretty sure that you could, but for a second there, when I went here and I went to right click, it didn't say drill through, and that's really interesting because this functionality to hover over and you got to wait these couple of seconds for drill through, it's consistent with the new way of working, but it's strange that there's no consistency with the right click as well.
Yeah,
because there's always been two different ways of doing it, so it's interesting to see that one way is being dropped. Which is an important thing. I think that's an important thing to think about if you're like doing any trainings or documentation or just general spreading Power BI knowledge, because it would suggest to me that at some point the right click functionality might disappear completely.
Oh, I hope not.
I'm not saying that's true. I'm just saying based on this, again feedback for Miguel. Why is there no right click possibility on the slicer? But the fact that you can drill through, very cool. Right. The fact that you can use a tooltip is very nice. I'll just go back to my layout because it's kind of annoying me now. Rows, columns. Yeah, this is what I want to see as well. So if I go to my layout and I say I only want, so I said rows, columns 1, rectangle slicer settings. If someone can show me the place where.
Which bit are you looking for?
I'm going crazy. Yeah, right. This is what I was trying to say, basically.
Obviously,
I have loads of values, but I've said 1 column 4 rows, and that's not saying that it's only going to show 3 of those values. It's saying that that's how many it's going to show in its natural state, right?
Yeah.
So I've said I'll have 5. So in its natural, it's showing me 5 in this box here, which I think is very cool. I've got to say, it's nice to have that. Also, you have this functionality, continue scroll or paginated. So there's no scrolling now. You can just click to say next 5, next 5. Also, you can say you're going to be horizontal as well. So click left and right.
Oh, that's nice. Because you could set it for the top 5 then. So you could see the top 5, second 5 or.
Exactly. And also the reason I wanted to change the layout is I wanted to kind of show these in a bit more context, that now you can see more that this person has more of these things.
Yeah.
Obviously, I haven't given these images these much context, right? So you'd need to basically explain what they're actually showing and stuff. But I think just from that small amount that we've seen, we can see that there's a much greater functionality and a lot of thought that's gone into,
I do like that pagination option. and the fact that you can specify how many you want to see, because sometimes your whole page, you can have it. I've dropped into the chat. Sorry, Ben. A link from Alice Drummond. Do you know Alice?
Perfect. Yeah. Alice is great. Yeah.
So Alice is really good with visuals as well. And if you're interested, because I remember the thing that stopped me at the beginning was how to add an image to a Power BI if it's an image URL and you're not hosting those image URLs. So and I found the IMGBB through Alice's blog post. So that's probably about 4 years, or maybe there's a few years old, but it's a really good one. So if you're interested in putting images into Power BI, have a look at that one.
So just to go, please. Just to go back to the point you were making, I kind of skipped over that before. I have this page. Here's one I prepared earlier page.
Nice.
Going full Blue Peter, right?
Yeah.
And just to display, so before I was having like SVGs as the images, and these are back to my card visuals, right? So if I go back to my image, all I've just taken is this image URL, you just paste it in there. So it's very, very static. I guess, of course, if, however, something happens and that image gets removed, then you're going to have your image removed from your report, I guess. But that's if luckily for this, it's really just as simple as pasting the link, and it works nicely. You've got to play around with it, like the size and stuff. And as I say, I think the point that I was making before about lots of clicks is because it's hard to get used to where everything is, especially when one option exposes a new option and you've got to click precisely, which is so it's you have to think about more about what you're trying to achieve. However, in fairness, what you are achieving is a lot better than what we had before. Yeah. So I'm trying not to be massively grumpy about it. Do you understand?
No, those cards at the top look lovely with the contrast in the colour.
These ones here.
Yeah, the total point goal scored. They look nice and smart.
The top kind of reminds me of Donald Trump's hair. It's got like a quick swish. Right. Yeah, I do like that, to be honest. And they're so basic. I mean, there's nothing fancy going on. There's no nice, all right. There's no SVG paths. There's no like added. And these are the ones I created, I think, before a lot of this stuff ever existed in the new card. It was months ago. Actually, what I really like this one. I'm not a big fan of gauges, to be honest, but I liked it because I could basically create a dashboard that looked literally like an old, so like a car dashboard with all these circular stuff, and the circles together.
How did you do that one then? What's that one?
So this one it's just a shape. So I've got it's literally a rounded rectangle. So I've taken the card and I've said, okay, I want the shape to be a rounded rectangle, so it would be a square.
Yeah.
The thing is, though, you can't actually say I want a circle. You've got to kind of just like make the circle yourself, you know? So depending on how you pull the visual, it will eventually become a circle. So it's everything that I showed before, basically. And this gauge is an SVG gauge. So I've got image and then image URL. And I have one of the things that I have, and again, I just go actual. And so this gauge is what I stole from Greg. You said you had Greg on last week or before?
Yes, Greg Deckler. Yeah.
Greg Deckler. One of the things that he's created, which I think is wonderful, is the Microsoft hates Greg quick measures. It's one of the external tools that I use here.
Yeah.
And it's very good for people like me who aren't good at SVGs because it has some great SVG stuff you can copy and paste.
Does it?
It does. So I would highly recommend anyone who wants to learn SVGs. The quick measures thing is actually very good in its own right, but for me it was very helpful just for SVGs, just to kind of. And I've seen a lot of. I think actually, the funny thing is if you look at SVG code, I guess code in general looks pretty similar when you're trying to achieve the same stuff.
Yeah.
But you can see that there's a lot of pasting that has gone on and been like shared throughout the community because even like the comments are in the same place and have the same notes and stuff, you know. Yeah. So yeah, it's SVGs. It's a great resource. Yeah,
I've just dropped a link to his GitHub in the site.
Perfect. So, I could honestly talk more, but I think it gets quite overwhelming. I know for time is also pushed. My objective was to show the basic functionality, what you can do, and the hope that you think that's pretty cool and try and do it myself, and then see what you can build with it, and
inspire us.
Yeah, and basically, as I say, really important. If there's anything that you particularly like or don't like, really try to let Miguel know, because if there's something that you particularly like, he'll focus more on that feature. If there's something that you don't like or needs to be improved, then he'll at least know about it and help him fix it faster, basically.
They like having feedback. Say what's good, say what you think you would like, and it usually does. Recommendations for laptops for Power BI. You want at least 64 gig, really?
Okay, I can give you this recommendation. Do not trust the Microsoft documentation that says you need 4 gigabytes. It is absolute garbage.
64, I would say.
Honestly, my personal computer is a desktop, not a laptop.
Yeah, same.
Because I don't need it anymore because I work from home. And my personal desktop, I run actually only 32 gigs because I bought it when it was really hard to get all the stuff. But also because it has like Intel 9 or whatever. It runs really nicely. So 32 gigs of RAM is in my opinion fine. 64 is obviously better for sure. But
64.
Yeah, of course. Stop showing off. Come on. That's it. I'm going. I'm going to take my whiskey and my mince pie and I'm getting out of here. I on my personal device, I don't work with big data sets. That's the thing. Yeah, I work with like my play data. I make obviously videos and stuff, but for me, 32 gigs with an i9 processor is really plenty. I think 16's pushing your luck, to be honest, but Anthony says it rarely have issues, so there you go.
Oh, I think when you're trying to do Power BI and then Teams and then you're in different remote
That's
desktops and just everything. Anyway, we will stop so that you can go and join in the Christmas tree celebrations with your with your whiskey and your mince pie.
Thank you.
I can go and do my yoga thing, and we can let everybody else get on with their evenings. But Ben, that was absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much.
You're
really
welcome.
enjoyed
Thank you for having me. I had fun as well.
Any last questions before we let Ben go? And apologies again at the beginning. We were having a lovely time chatting away. I said everyone's normally here by now because I said mine this group's on time. They're ready. So Paul will definitely be here.
It was brilliant.
Should have learned. It's the chaotic nature of me, Ben.
It's the most fun part. Come on, that's why we're here. That's the funness. Huh?
Anyway, we'll let you go. Have a lovely Christmas and thank you so much. And everybody,
too.
I will put this on YouTube and have a great rest of the evening.
Great.
Take
Thanks,
care,
everyone.
all.
Take
Bye.
care.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Ben. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.